ever stay in a relationship that hurt you just because being alone felt scarier, or shut down emotionally when someone tried to get close? What if I told you this pattern often traces back not to your personality but to your past? Welcome to chapter 2 of our trauma series. Hi, I'm Dr. Katia Batista, psychiatrist. This is the second episode of our trauma mini-series where we break down psychological trauma using clear science-based explanations. If you haven't watched the first chapter yet, I highly recommend you do. In that episode, we explore the neurobiological foundations, how trauma literally reshapes the brain. In these second chapters, we will focus on how early life trauma, what we often refer to as complex trauma, shapes adult mental health. You might remember from the first video that complex trauma involves repeated chronic exposure to traumatic experience, often starting in childhood and typically involving caregivers. These early wounds don't just fade with time, they leave deep emotionally and neurobiological imprints that influence how we see ourselves, relate to others, and regulate emotions in adulthood. Childhood trauma refers to any emotionally painful or distressing experience that occurs during early life and overwhelms a child's ability to cope. This experience can shape brain development, emotional regulation, and future relationships, such as physical abuse, intentional physical harm, hitting, burning, or checking, which can result in injury and fear, emotional abuse, verbal attacks, constant criticisms, or rejection that damage the child's sense of self-worth, sexual abuse, any form of sexual activity or exposure imposed on a child and resulting in emotional and physical, psychological consequence. Neglect, failure to meet a child's basic physical or emotional needs, including food, shelter, attention or love, household dysfunction, growing up in an environment with domestic violence, substance use, mental illness, or incarceration creates instability and chronic stress. Community or school violence, exposure to unsafe environments, bullying, neighborhood violence can lead to emotional numbness or hypervigilance, loss or abandonment. Experience the death of a parent or being separated from caregivers can trigger deep feelings of insecurity and attachment issues. Severe illness or accidents, serious medical conditions, or traumatic injury can disrupt a child's sense of safety and cause ongoing fear or hopelessness. Witnessing a traumatic event, observing violence, accidents, or disasters, even if not directly involved, can have lasting emotional effects. Recognizing these signs after experiencing trauma, whether emotional, physical, or environmental, that children can exceed may not always be obvious. These symptoms can affect various areas of development. For that reason, here's how effects broken down into key areas. Behavioral changes, irritability and frequent tantrums, aggression or oppositional behavior, risk taking or impulsive actions, substance abuse, social withdrawal, or avoiding playing, even regressive behavior like bedwetting. The emotional symptoms are anxiety, persistent fear, sadness, crying, or depression, low self esteem, mood swings, emotional numbness, sleep disturbances like nightmares, insomnia, or fear or being alone. Cognitive symptoms also are observed like difficulty concentrating, trouble learning or completing tasks, negative thoughts or hopelessness, hyperarousal and alertness, hypervigilance, always on edge, easily startled, difficulty relaxing or sitting still, social difficulties, trouble forming or maintaining friendships, distrust on adults or other peers, avoidance of group activities, separation anxiety, and the last one, physical symptoms. Frequent headaches, fatigue, low energy, changes in appetite, unexplained aches and pains. Let's look at a few real life examples. Abandonment or emotional neglect. A child who was emotionally ignored or abandoned may become an adult who fears being left, developing anxious attachment. They may become clingy in relationships, overtext, overthink, and even tolerate mistreatment just to avoid being alone. Harsh criticism or unrealistic expectations. A child constantly told to be perfect or that they are not good enough often becomes an adult who is highly self-critical or have a struggle with low self-esteem and feels like nothing they do is enough. Sexual abuse or physical violations, those ones that they are exposed to these, may experience intimacy issues, fear of physical closeness, or even anorgasmia. Some feel shame around their own body or avoid romantic relationships. Chaotic or violent households. These children grow up hypervigilant, constantly scanning for danger. As an adults, they might overreact to minor conflicts, live in constant stress, or be triggered easily, even in safe environments. Parentification is when the child has to care for adults. They may become over responsible adults, always putting others first and feeling guilty when prioritizing their own needs. These patterns are not flaws, they are survival responses. Your nervous system learned to protect you and now is trying to keep you safe even when the danger is gone. Understanding this is the first step toward healing because healing is possible. Healing does not mean forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It means creating safety in the present through therapy, self awareness, and supporting relationships. You can rewire your emotional responses and build healthier patterns. Science shows that the brain is plastic. It can change. Neuroplasticity means that the brain can change and adapt throughout life. It's like the brain is flexible. It can form new connections between its cells, especially when we learn something new or go through new experiences or even after injury or trauma. Even if someone has gone through difficult situations in childhood, the brain is not stuck. With the right support, therapy, or positive habits, it can reorganize itself, heal and build healthier patterns. That's why healing and personal growth are truly possible because the brain is plastic, not fixed. What we can do as adults to prevent trauma in children? Preventing trauma means more than avoiding abuse. It's about building safe, stable, and emotional supportive environment. Here's how we can help. Be emotionally present. Listen, validate their feelings, and offer consistent support. Respond calmly to behavior. Discipline with patience, not punishment. Never use violence or humiliation. Model healthy emotional regulation. How we handle stress teaches children how to manage their own emotions. Protect them from violence. If there is domestic violence, seek help. Children absorb everything. Exposure to intimidation, violence causes deep emotional scars. Recognizing signs of bullying or school violence. If a child is withdrawn, anxious, and afraid to go to school, intervene early. Talk to teachers, counselors. Don't minimize their distress. Limit exposure to community violence. When possible, avoid exposing children to unsafe environments. Help them process what they have seen or have heard. Break cycles of dysfunction. Growing up around addiction, emotional neglect, or constant conflict does not have to define their future. Safe adults can rewrite their story. And finally, heal yourself too. Unresolved trauma in adults can unintentionally pass on to the next generation. Let's become the safety and peace our children deserve. Early recognition of these symptoms is crucial. If left unaddressed, children can have long-term effects on emotional and mental health. Trauma is not always visible, but its impact is real and have long-term effect. If you are going through this, seek professional help and please protect your child. If any of this resonate with you, please like, share this video. You are not alone, and most important, you are not broken. Visit my YouTube channel to watch chapter 1 if you haven't already seen. Please, let's keep learning and growing together. Thank you.